Welcome, Free Enterprise. It's another day of matches in the Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise League, Highway to the Threemus Zone. Today we have two runners, C1assybadger and Caront. This is the last day of the Hook Magma portion of the league. Neither of these runners are going to advance based on their standings, but this portion of the race is going to be kind of the official halfway mark between us when we go more or less. I mean, there's going to be the play-in races too before we go into the table races. So we're getting towards a major transition here in the league. And I'm just going to, for more commentary, I'm just going to hand things over to my co-commentator, Dathis.
Thanks very much, Rumblefish. Yeah, so what we have here is both Classy and Caront are 0-2. This is more of a race for pride. They don't have a chance for hitting into the tables now, but what they do have is a chance to maybe show off some meme strats, maybe show off some fun things. Maybe we'll see a fact we won't see any edges this seed. I'm excited. Maybe we'll get a longer run, because a lot of them have been fairly quick. We've seen about the hour and a half mark as probably the average length of time, with a few outliers here and there. But I'm excited that these guys, like, you know what? We're going to fight. We're going to show it off. And they're here today to give us a great early afternoon race.
Yeah, and based on the objectives, looks like we may very well have one of those longer seeds, because we have, of course, we have the Forge the Crystal, which is the standard objective in these flags, as well as defend Fable, return the pan to Yang's wife, and trade away the pink tail. So those last two objectives, returning the pan to Yang's wife and trading away the pink tail, I mean, they require a lot of other kind of sub-objectives to be met in order to be accomplished. Like, you have to find the pan, you have to get to the underworld and whack Yang, and then you have to, for the trade away the pink tail, you have to find both the pink tail and the hook to make that happen, and the hovercraft to, put that all in place. So we might be in for a little bit more of a longer seed for this race.
Yeah, and the nice thing is we also have a Kain start, which is probably one of the better ones outside of Edge that you're looking to find. You've got Kain, who can equip a vast majority of the weapons. He's got swords, he's got daggers, he's got axes, and a lot of them are great for early damage. So he's a great little jack-of-all-trades, master of none kind of character. His attack power is not as high as maybe you'd want to see some other ones, but he's not much of a liability like vanilla Agility Cecil, for example, where if you don't find that Excalibur, even like the lightsaber is kind of like okay for him. If you don't find something like that, he kind of falls off. Whereas Kain has such a wide variety, and we get to see exactly who's going to be paired with him in just a second, as the runners are off.
Here we go.
That's something you love to see. You see an Edge, and we have either Leg or Leg and Friends giving a Darkness Crystal right off the hop. That is most of the world completely open to these guys. That's another character check. That's a grind option if we find a Tello right there. So we have the upper world is absolutely our oyster right here.
Yeah, with an Edge start and with a Darkness Crystal start, I mean, a lot is open to us. We can start picking off some of the early overworld key item checks, go straight to the moon, and also we might have a good grind option right off the bat if we find a Tella which we can use for a D-Machine grind in the Giant of Babel.
Absolutely, and this also changes where a lot of routing happens, because most people, they're like, okay, our starting characters aren't really strong, we don't know where we're going to go. We see a lot of people kind of shy away from Baron right off the hop. I was going to hope maybe we'd have them go there, but Caront going for the basic, going check Mysidia for extra characters. Usually with an Edge, a lot of people like to go and, raising the big whale off the hop too. People like to go and grab extra characters, but with Edge, you can basically get through Baron in right away. Whereas Classy, going and doing that dancing check and seeing what's there, kind of empty in the basement, as a matter of fact. These three chests here might give him something nice, though.
Yeah, I mean, the Sylph find and Dancian would be pretty good, and that we found a Gungnir Spear for Kain, so that's going to give him some extra firepower or extra attack power right off the bat. And Sylph, if there's a Rydia that we can find, I mean, Sylph is a very useful summon early on. So I would say that's not all that. It's a fair haul in the Dancian treasury.
Yeah, that Gungnir being one of Kane's basically end game weapons right off the bat means that he doesn't have to worry about a whole lot about damage, maybe looking for, say, a defense sword to be, quote, even better. But aside from that, we have Caront going right up to the moon to give us a character, whereas Classy Badger finds a kid chilling here at the top of Damcian, looking for some friends, going to be going on a journey. Might even see what that Vanilla Hobbs flag has before I use that Self Summon if I was in Classy Badger's side. Whereas Caront, checking the item shop on the moon, really smart play. Maybe we're going to get some early Sirens here, or maybe even some Hourglasses.
Right, the shop on the moon, the Hummingway shop we're about to see, is one of the higher tier shops in this randomizer. We have Illusions, Alarms, and Eagle Eyes. Illusions are a pretty good thing to have. Looks like, we don't have a lot of cash to spend right at this point, but that's something that we might want to keep in mind later on.
Exactly, and the nice thing is he has that knowledge. So if Sirens and Hourglasses were both here, and knowing the teams that you have, that opens up a whole lot of grinds. You could have done the more common Warlock grinds now that people like to do. There's still the Dragon grinds if we see the Sirens. It's just knowing where that is. Whereas we have another edge here in Watery Pass, and Caront is going to see who's chilling up here on the moon. So there is a lot of edges on the seed. It is going to be fairly quick overworld damage. And we have Rosa on the moon, so that is a really strong white mage to find that early. It's very, very powerful team we're building right now.
Yeah, these character checks are being very generous to our runners. I mean, Rosa is arguably the best character in the entire game of Final Fantasy IV Enterprise because of her high hit point growth, her white magic, and she can even be a decent fighter if you can find the right bow and arrow for her. So these are some really good finds for runners early on.
And speaking of really good finds, Classy Badger dipping into Watery Pass, one of the better checks to be doing because of the T Wildish waiting, finding a Blizzard Spear on the back, but the real prize he found was in fact that Avenger. Means that when we get to Zeromus, if you're going with these Berserker strats, you're going to be having no problem having to work for Bacchus wines, and you just have a great way to have Kane auto Berserk or any other character that can use it. Whereas Caront goes back into Mysidia, finds Cure 2s and Life Potions in a single shop. That's really nice to have. Again, no money yet because he's not really done any looting, but the knowledge of where these are, and he doesn't have to go digging for them, is very strong. And with a Dwarf Axe also in Mysidia, a lot of really good things, a lot of money to be spent, because that Dwarf Axe is the only way to back row glitch that Kane. But knowing where all this is huge information. And even a Cursed Ring too. Mysidia having nothing but the goods.
Yeah, I definitely got a stacked town in Mysidia. Those are all really great finds. And Classy Badger is now going to take on Asura in Mount Hobbs to get the character there. I think I missed the character that was found there, but
so that's another Rosa that we have up here, which not going to the moon, he doesn't know that, but he's got more than enough strength to go through here. And Caront finding a Tella and a Palom, I believe that was a Palom in Mysidia. So we have your grind option ready to go. In all honesty, he finds Ethers and starts finding ways to sell stuff to sell to afford this. He can get all the levels he's going to need to go right for Zeromus kind of fights. So this is a very Jet Seed looking right off the bat.
Right. I mean, the Darkness Crystal, the early Tella, just need to have life potions and a source of MP. You can, bring up your go to the Giant of Babel, start doing that grind on D machines, and you can get your characters up to like level, 60 level. I mean, well enough to fight Zeromus right at the start of the game. So, be interesting to see if Caront takes that approach.
Yeah, speaking of what Caront does and does not take, he sees that Rosa and says, you know what, one bay is good enough. We're going to go and we're going to get ourselves a little bit of looting, and is actually going to be checking Kaipo first before going into that Watery Pass, whereas Classy Badger going to get us our first key item check look. We have so many characters, not enough key items. Let's change that up when we go here through Antlion Cave.
Yeah, Antlion Cave is a one of the earlier checks that we can find. And then in Capo item shop we have an Odin as well as Star Veils and Succubus. Succubus can be used, in lieu of Ethers if you need to get some MP for Tella if you're creative in your use with them. But so we have some long swords for edge too, also in the typo item shop, and those are probably the best value early weapons you can find for that ninja.
Exactly. For early overworld weapons, you're more looking for the ninja. You're more looking for, and there's a bedward, not exactly something you're gonna want to see. So yeah, I don't expect Caront to be taking that. But yeah, long swords, probably the best ninja swords you're finding on the overworld. Most likely waiting to dip underground or something, just to try and see if there's anything maybe nicer there. Where Caront is now going to be finding this second edge here in Watery Pass along with the Avenger. Wonder if he, with that Tela, will go for a deeper dive. Yeah, you see he's looking at his characters as, do I take that edge? Do I not take that edge? This is a really interesting point. You've got great weapons for Kane. You've got good weapons. You've got no weapons for Edge. He's just leaving it there. So that's an interesting way to go about it.
And on Classy Badger's screen, we have an early fight with Dr. Luge and his beloved creation, Banalb. It should be Kane with an Avenger should make short work of that. On top of that, Classy Badger found some pretty good items in the Antline Cave. A Sorcerer's Robe, which is an excellent defense for our mages, and also found a Cursed Ring there. So he will be able to use that as to slow down his anchor, for the Zeromus fight.
Indeed, and the really nice thing about that is that he will not have to spend the 25k about that. But also, again, on Classy Badger's side, we have, now a Bahamut from that check, in addition to the fact that we have Kane going so fast that Dr. Cutscene doesn't even get to live up to his name. He's like, hey, and then just absolutely gone. Whereas Caront is doing, with that Tela, a deeper dive into this cave here of Watery Pass. So far, coming up basically empty. This T-Sparse really showing off in this seed and kind of making Watery Pass one of the better checks that people like to doing. A bit of a bust, which is kind of impressive.
Yeah, the seed has been really generous in some aspects, but not other aspects. I mean, with the Bahamut summon learned by Iridia, I mean, our runners are going to be able to do some really great damage early on, especially with the availability of edges. To both runners. But so, I mean, for starting the seed, there's a lot of firepower right away.
Absolutely. And Caront actually picking up a ribbon in Baron, one of the pots, and finding some cabins here as well. Not bad to pick up Mute Bells if we go for a Warlock grind. Looks like we're going to have him do another key item check here, or is just doing a little bit more looting. Finding, very nice, a boomerang, so that edge can be back road as well. So we've gotten a lot of really nice things, like just slowly trickling in as we're going around and doing some early checks. And again, while the guys are doing early checks, I want to give a bit of a shout out to the guys who are working behind the scenes that you don't get to hear so often. Joe Fitzmano is on our restream today, and Bahamut X is doing our tracking. Shout out to those, they're getting doing all the hard work, so whereas Rumblefish and I, we get to sit here and hang out with you guys.
And Classy Badger is about to do our second key item check, our second boss check, and defending Fable, which of course is an objective for this seed. We're going to see who it is they're going to have to take out to defend the castle momentarily, and that might give us a hint as to where we're going to go for progression once defeated. We have CPU as our boss here.
And I'm living up to my name here. I guess Jofis is kind of taking up for me. We have a Vanilla Yang sitting in Baron Inn with a different set of characters. It is the Magus Sisters. So that's a really nice fight to see. You get that an early boss out of the way in a nice spot. Yang, not a character a lot of people have been seeing get some work in with these flags, but still a great one. Whereas Classy Badger taking out those little defender and attacker nodes, getting Sylph, and going to be doing a whole lot of damage, getting through CPU, super easy.
Yeah, CPU and Fable is no match for Kane with an Avenger or Rydia with those stronger summon spells. So Rydia just learned Warp, which is going to be a good in case once runners get underground and they need to have that Warp and Dwarf Castle to get the for the glitch to get the extra key item, and we're going to find out what the key item in Fable is right now.
Yep, getting that second objective done, finding a Twin Harp, music possibly on the table. With this team, I'd absolutely see them going and just wrecking through. And Classy Badger wondering where he's going to be going next. Will he chase that? Will he go through some other checks? Because he's got the physical power to get through a lot of these spots, whereas Caront is not satisfied, doing more shopping percent, finding Soma drops. If he does go through that D-Machine grind, giving Tail that 100 MP, very, very big. Runners giving another little high five. They did so on the top of Hobbs, and now they're doing so here in Troya. Looks like we may have really early music on Classy Badger side, which I'd be very excited to see. But currently, right now, just checking the shops. Maybe even going to hit up Troya Castle, check out the eight chests that are in there. This is also a good-ish spot to find things. But right now, fighting the hardest boss in all of Free Enterprise, sorry, the second hardest boss in all of Free Enterprise. This is the hardest being inventory percent, NPC percent. Well, yep, Classy Badger definitely going to go and give us a little bit of music early on.
So Classy Badger is definitely going to be a runner of the people, and show us what's the randomized music selection is that Edward will play for us in Cave Magnus to thwart the song of the Dark Elf.
Absolutely, and we see one of the nice things is in the vanilla game, Edward just plays his basic tune on his harp, but we're not doing something simple like that here in Free Enterprise. Calm Lamity, along with Boardface, have done so many songs to throw in here. I think there's something near about 150 songs, so as we randomize all the locations for key items, all the color palettes for them. Some of them, if you have if you turn the fab off. We also randomize the music that he plays. Some can be pop songs. Some can be some are from pop culture. Some are from other video games. Some are even from other Final Fantasy. It's always great to see what we have for this seed. And while we're getting the walk up there, Caront finding yet a different version of Yang, chilling out and training under a waterfall.
Yeah, and we see Caront noping out of that fight. It's not probably the Dragon Mist that he was looking for. Classy Badger is starting off the fight with the Dark Elf and Cave Magnus. Immediately gets a perished, and I'm going to be quiet now so we can see what Edward is going to play for us. I believe we have music from Final Fantasy III Japan. I can't quite place exactly where this music comes from that game.
According to Matthias 1349 in chat, Aria's song from Final Fantasy III. Very gorgeous, nicely done here on the harp. Great renditions. All of them are fantastically done. And we have a Dark Knight Cecil here. Not exactly something you want to see with Kane Avengering, so we're going to have to do a lot of healing here. And that is, with that amount of HP, that is a big hit of about 150. We're going to hopefully get Rosa to heal up people, and Sylph is going to be doing a whole bunch of work trying to keep people topped off. The unfortunate thing here is the magic defense is very high, so we're about to see a bit of a whammy on the damage and healing.
Yeah, right. I just saw Rydia. Rydia's going to cast Sylph right now. It's going to do really no damage and no healing, unfortunately, because the magic defense here in this spot is so high. But Rosa should be able to keep up that the heals, though, with her curative spells.
Right, her Cure 2 doing enough, keeping everybody up. Kane just whacking away, more than enough. I think that was a little bit faster than eating all three of those dark waves, thankfully damage-wise. But yeah, perfectly fantastic. Whereas we have Caront on the right-hand side, learns Mage from that Rydia flag, so not a great spell. We're about to see what Classy Badger gets. Key item, which is the Rat Tail. Not the tail we're looking for, but we've seen Rat Tail into Pink Tail checks before, so I'm really excited to see this.
Yeah, the Rat Tail is is right. The tail we needed for the objective, but it is definitely a progression item. It could lead to something else for runners, and so it's definitely worthwhile for. It's most likely worthwhile for Classy Badger to have made the trip to Cave Magnus for that item.
Absolutely. And the nice thing about it too, even if it doesn't lead anywhere, because that's one of those ones that could be key items that lead to a lovely bit of rabbit holing, it also puts him at 3 out of 10 key items for where he can start getting that double experience, meaning that any fight he takes, any enemy that he defeats will give him more than what's valued. So depending on how key item light or key item heavy this seed is, could be a really, really big benefit, or it could be a bit of a trap item overall. We'll find out later on. Caront now doing the dive into Antlion Cave, going to be finding their own Bahamut spell, maybe giving Rydia a little bit of levels up, whereas Classy Badger is popping a tent, and we're going to see where exactly they're going to go, because there's still a whole lot of checks that can be done. There is still, we have Ordeals, we have Baron Inn, they could even do a cheeky little moon check. There are the possibility of some freebies being up there and giving some free key items, if he wants to make the check and see those kind of things. But it looks like we're going to be heading right over to to Mount Ordeals.
Mount Ordeals is one of the longer checks in Final Fantasy IV Randomizer. I mean, it can take you a good 10 minutes to get through all the bosses, get through all the cutscenes, get through all the messages telling you, like, Cecil's now a paladin, Tello learned all of his spells. So it is a time investment, but on the other hand, it's an easy check to do early on for runners.
Yeah, and the nice thing is we're still and a ninja sword. Speaking of checks, the nice thing is that there is 3 bosses, so there's 3 chances of Demus being up here. So there's a fairly decent shot of this being a bonus round as well, getting 2 key item checks out of 1 location. But the really big benefit here that Classy Badgers is going to get is get that Tella online, get him all his spells, where we find yet our 3rd edge here on Ordeals. And the question is, do you keep that? Looks like Classy Badger says no, but is taking absolutely all of his equipment. That's a fair amount of money, and that black belt is a great offensive power item.
Yeah, it's just one great thing about finding an edge early on. If you have multiple edges and you just don't, it's just too many edges for you, but you can still, he comes with some really great starting armor, and you can just, swipe that from amendment equipment onto Kane or Yang or whoever you have with you.
Absolutely. And Classy Badger finds himself a free fight, King Queen Evelyn. Not where you want to see them, but it's nice to have it up here just to get something quick, as Edge can just get a quick hit, and down they go, so you don't have to hear the king taking you down to Hades and avoid the script of all those spells, which do take a minute.
Yeah, in some ways it's kind of a waste of a King and Queen Avalon. I mean, this isn't a very hard spot for a boss, as you can see by the fact that Classy Badger just ripped through it in less than a few seconds. But with all that firepower, we can do it very quickly and get it over with.
Speaking of getting something over quickly, we find ourselves a Pale Dim on the back of Hobbs, so that is something that's going to get knocked down pretty quickly by that Avenger Kane. And as well, Rydia in fact found a Dragon Whip, so if we have her doing some offensive power, she could help in putting some good damage against this, because all this it does is counter physical attacks at slow, so it's not going to take a whole lot. A little bit of HP down here. It's a fairly free ordeal so far.
Made all the freer by the generous early characters over in able to find the Temple Edges and the King with the Avenger. We're really seeing the worth of that early King with the early Avenger in this seed.
Absolutely. An Avenger is probably one of the better items to have found for that Kane. As I said, he gets to use so much equipment, and the Avenger probably the best, if not second best, item that you could find on the overworld. I would fight saying that the White Spear is slightly bit better, depending on what you see. but it is still a great find as we see him just taking and going brute force, because brute force, if it doesn't work, you're not doing it right. But Kane does it exactly right here, as we're going to get a look to see what is up here at the top of the mountain.
Right, and Caront is out in the middle of doing her defending Fable, which of course will get his first objective complete. And then we're going to have the final boss here on Ordeals for FF4FE.
Unfortunately, a bit of a whammy in my opinion. We have the Sandry, which we know that is an Edward, not a character I don't think anybody is going to be taking. As well, we're finding an Odin in here, a boss that can be scary in a couple of locations, but here a couple of quick swings and the king from underneath Baron is taken down. But the big prize here again, Tello learns all of his spells, most importantly that all-important weak spell. So here, looks like ClassyBadger is pretty much kind of shoehorned into seeing Baron in, because that's going to be our way underground.
Right, the Sand Ruby isn't going to get us a whole lot because basically in this seed is just going to be a character check, and we know it's Edward, which is also not all that great in these flags unless we have the spoon. But getting the Odin, I think, seeing him in this early spot is also good, because it's much better seeing that fight can get really nasty and ugly if it's in more, if you find it on Odin on the moon or in Fey March, because there's a time limit and it can really hit pretty nasty. So in many respects, it's good to have that boss in an early spot as opposed to a later one.
Absolutely. And Caront still checking a couple more shops, probably looking for the most important part of the D Machine grind. He finds one in the chest, but not one for sale yet. Looking for ethers, which is the big thing. Whereas ClassyBadger going to be checking to see who is in fact here in Mysidia, as well as raising that big whale finally.
It'd be interesting to see if ClassyBadger takes a risk and starts checking out some of the moon spots. I mean, the levels are kind of low, generally speaking, for a moon fight, but you might be able to find a free fight in the moon, and you might be able to get an advantage over your opponent if luck has your way. We shall see.
Absolutely, and we have someone in chat, Commander Leonhardt, one of our other commentators and runners here as well, saying, "How about a demist at Magus Sisters?" I do keep forgetting that Magus Sisters could be in a very interesting spot, such as that. So that could lead you to the hook, which the Rat Tail can give you an Earth Crystal, and Zot giving Magma. That is in fact a chain, which I am here for. ClassyBadger finding some items that he's excited to see, selling off a lot of the gear. That Dragoon Shield, which normally is one of the better ones for Kane to have, which halves all elemental damage and resists dragons. But when you're wearing Avenger, you can't exactly wield a shield, so it's not doing him a whole lot of justice right now, and having to equip and unequip it is just not something that's going to be beneficial to have, but is going to find that Dwarf Axe, going to be most likely picking it up, just to make sure he's got Kane to hit everything he possibly can.
Yeah, that Dwarf Axe is going to give Kane long-range capability. In Final Fantasy IV, there's a glitch where if a character equips a long-range weapon, they will always be hitting as if they were having a long-range weapon, even if they equip a short-range weapon. So since Dwarf Axe is the only long-range weapon that Kane can equip, that's a good find for ClassyBadger.
Mm-hmm. And going back to the conversation about Magus Sisters and Demist, so in the randomizer, you have access to anywhere that would mostly be gated, that would mostly not be gated by key items. For example, the Tower of Zot can only be accessed if you have the Earth Crystal, but normally you can't go back once you've completed it. We have it so that you can access it the entire time. You just cannot get past the part where you need the Earth Crystal turn-in. For example, you can't go and do the Valvalis fight and get the normal vanilla magma key, but you can go and turn it into the quote Golbez location there and go up until that point. So that is classified as in logic. But we do have ClassyBadger and Caront fighting here in the Baron Inn. There is in fact our Demist though, right behind the Magus Sisters. That is a nut. So we don't have any cheeky Demist hidden, but Baron Inn is in fact a bonus round.
Yeah, because we will get 2 key item checks now. We'll get the standard key item that's going to come from being the bosses in Baron Inn, and then since that the boss is the Mist Dragon, we'll be able to go to the Village of Mist and speak to Radiant's Mom before she dies to get the key item that comes from there.
Speaking of key items, that might not be a key item, but Hanzo's Steel coming and giving Edge a very good weapon for one of those 2 edges that Classy Badger has. That's almost as good as a key item, but this does mean that we do have D-Mist being what was gating that. So it's either going to be Hook or Magma Key exactly from this D-Mist, and I'm excited to see which one it is. I personally want to see Hook. We haven't really seen a lot of Hook required routes. And it'd be really nice to see that being the way underground.
And Hook is semi-required by the objectives anyway. You got to trade away the pink tail. So, in many ways, Hook would be more beneficial for our runners as opposed to getting a Magma Key.
Absolutely. And question in chat: the underground has to be on the blue planet. Moon cannot gate it. That is correct. We do not have K unsafe, which blocks that. What that means is that there has to be a logical progression of overworld to underground to moon access, meaning that whether through a chain, as we might possibly see here, with unfortunately we see the Magma Key here, we could have had to go through Baron Inn and then other ways to get down there, but if it has to be up there, and no, it cannot be in the basement throne of Baron. It has to be on the upper section of Baron. The way the logic works is that the underground Odin spot is classified as being fought as after you would have gone underground to go and handle the Feymarch bosses. So it has to be the Baron underground cannot be the only access to the underground. Additionally, there are 3 bosses that cannot gate it. So if you're looking and you've got a couple checks left and you see Golbez, Valvalis, or Wyvern, those are the 3 bosses that also cannot gate your only progression to underground. They may gate a single style of progression, but they will not gate your only way to get to the underground.
So yeah, I thought it's pretty clear that we're going to go to the underground here imminently. Both of our runners are after they drop the Magma Key down the well in the village at Agard. So what are you going to do? Like, say you're a runner doing this race. I mean, like we're just in the underground now. What's going to be your first stops when you get there?
So the very first stop I usually make is you go. It's the rule of thumbs I have: check your freebies. The chest in Feymarch, that is a free key item. That is something that you're going to absolutely need, and that is something that you can just go and grab real quick. If that is the pan, that is a nice little double whammy, quite literally, because you can then go and smack Yang and wake him up and get key items from Sheila as well. My next check would still be Yang regardless, because that is opening up another key item check. And I do love me some vanilla, so Sheila 1 could still have the vanilla pan, which is one of our required items here. If you decide you don't want to go up overground right away, Dwarf Castle and Keyless Tower is my cheekiest favorite play.
This is where I have to disagree with you. I think I would go, if I were Classy Badger or Caront, I think I would go towards Dwarf Castle first. Because we do have, on these flags, the warp glitch on, which means that if you're in Dwarf Castle, after you beat the bosses there, you will warp back to not the crystal room for Dwarf Castle, but the crystal room in the sealed cave. So you get access to the free key item there right away, in addition to the key item that you get from Dwarf Castle. So there'd be 2 checks you could write off very quickly there at once, and one of them might be the pan, which would give you make the visit to Yang a little more productive.
Absolutely, and that's the really nice thing about randomizers and the way all the different routes are being. There's no such thing as a, quote, wrong path. So everywhere is a right path until it leads into the wrong end, but it doesn't mean that is a bad decision. It is just the wrong path. However, speaking of things that are some right things, we do have both the Dwarf and the Tomra shops giving some very, very lovely items. The Dwarf shop has Bacchus wines, so that is great for berserking your characters, and we have hourglasses in Tomra, so we have a lot of really great, really high-tier items here sitting underground, which is the really benefit of the underground access. Additionally, we have a log grader as our job dwarf check, one of our favorite things. The seed is in fact validated by Caront, as we have Classy Badger checking out and finding that the first boss of Dwarf Castle is going to be a Lunar Sparkle. This could be a really spicy fight.
Yeah, because generally speaking, the Dwarf Castle bosses I don't think would be too much of a trouble for Classy Badger, but if this is Ogo Pogo, it's a Wyvern, so we better get those Star Veils off before a Mega Nuke goes off. Ooh.
And that's one of our lovely fights where he's just like, surprise, by the way. So once you've hit the underground area, the fact that you have faster characters sitting in the middle, such as that Kane with the Avenger, which gives him bonus agility, this is where it starts to get to the point where it gets a little dicey. However, that Curse Ring going to make that fight way easier. I'm assuming this battle speed going down to 6. Nope, only 3. So I'm excited to see Classy Badger take this fight. I believe that was a canceled save that I saw. But Caront is going to be doing the check that I like, and is going down and looking in Feymarch, going to see what we got down here.
Right, we can see the runners taking divergent paths in the underground to do different checks in different orders depending on their preferences. Karen's going to find out what the free item is and Feymarch first really quickly, and Classy Badger taking another stab at Wyvern. Hopefully be able to get a Star Veil off this time to avoid that Mega Nuke.
Absolutely, and Caront even finding an Hourglass too for his troubles in that bottom check of the Feymarch, which I couldn't find for the life of me when I was but a wee young lad. But it's nice that it's been found very easily, and we're going to see that the free key item check is the Earth Crystal. So that opens up 2 more characters, another key item check, another technically 2 boss checks, which aren't required, as well as gives access to a great set of items. But speaking of items, Caront finding probably the best item for grinding here. We have ourselves the Sirens in the Feymarch shop. That is a great purchase.
Right, Sirens are going to allow our runners to summon a particular battle fight, depending on where they are, which is it's probably the fastest way to get the grind going in this randomizer, especially if you go to scramble some eggs, as we say in our community, with the dragon fights and their eggs in the underground.
Speaking of underground, what we have here is some delicious vanilla on Classy Badger's side. That is in fact a vanilla Golbez in the Golbez spot. The really nice thing is the rest of his party is down. He's not going to get that life potion off that he queued up, but it's going to be Shadow Dragon's going to show up, going to be like, I'm here to, time for me to leave. And it's going to skip a fair bit of the death animations, and at least gives him a character that he's going to enjoy, at least be happy with up. Because Edge should be able to take these fairly mid to low damage spells really easily, get up maybe a Star Veil, and then plow through those Golbez fairly easily. Whereas that is not a set of fights you want to see down here. One is free, one that's a rude Valvalis.
Right, Valvalis in the Feymarch King spot is not exactly the way you want to see it. Given the fact that spot has a very quick speed and also has a lot of hit points comparable to bosses on the moon. So that's hopefully our value is not hidden behind Valvalis there.
Yeah, even if it is cooked by there, like we said, we have one free Feymarch fight, get the heals, take a save, and then toss that Hourglass that was found in fact down here. And you've got 1 key item and a very decent infusion of EXP right here. So this is not a bad check for Caront to be doing, as again, the biggest boss the runners have had to fight so far has in fact been these NPCs. Classy Badger getting a couple of people up. His fighter is getting some XP as he gets down that Golbez with fairly ease. And the one we have here is the Officer and Baron in Soldier fight. Nice thing is this Asura spot has a lot of HP, but doesn't exactly have a lot of physical power. Gonna get that hourglass off very easily, especially with all the attacks being put on that frontwards edge and saving a whole lot of problem. Whereas Rydia summoning up the king of all summons, and the father of all summons, and making short work of the allies that he has.
Yeah, the soldier and the officer and soldiers groups always has a disproportionate low amount of hit points in that setup. So Bahamut's able to take it out pretty quickly. Meanwhile, Classy
Ooh,
Badger...
and that's a required dwarf castle.
We get the pink tail for our troubles in beating the bosses there, and that should enable our runners to check off another objective. However, they have to find the hook first, otherwise they're not going to be able to take the hovercraft to Adamant Cave to exchange that pink tail. So there's still another ingredient missing before they can check off that objective.
Sorry, you were saying? Right here. Dwarf Castle has the entirety of the goods. The only thing that we're really missing right now is either the Pan or Legend Sword and Adamant, and we have absolute go mode. But yeah, Dwarf Castle having all the goods. I'm excited to see what Caront is going to find here. But yeah, Dwarf Castle, one of the plays where it really absolutely is paying off.
You can't do much better than finding all the key items you need to pull off one objective in one spot, which just goes to show like how the Dwarf Castle check in these flags is really a value because of those two checks there.
Absolutely. And that's the nice thing about keeping a warp caster, whether it be Rydia or whether it be Tella after he learns some spells, or whether you get some experience infused onto Palm. They do a whole lot of bonus work in the fact that they just have that access to that utility spell, and you just have the ability to go so much more and even leave certain places a whole lot faster. The utility of getting in some glitches as well as just the mobility is not to be understated. So you're now in Classy Badger's spot right here. Where do you go from here, Rumblefish? Like, what's your play right now? You see that you've got the pink tail and rat tail to turn in, which is going to be another objective. You've got the underground that's your oyster. Where are you going to go, and what's your plan? Whereas we find a package here on Caront's side.
I don't think Classy Badger it knows what's in the free checks in Feymarch right now. I mean, right now I'm going to be feeling a lot of pull to get that fourth objective checked off right away, but maybe that isn't the best play. I mean, maybe you want to go check out some of the other. You still have to do either the first or the third objective, and so probably the better thing to do is do the checks in Feymarch and then maybe trying to do a panless check of Yang. I'm not big on the keyless tower check under these flags. It takes a lot of time to go up and down that tower for just one key item. So I probably would avoid that. But some of the stuff that Caront is already is doing right now, and did in Feymarch, I think is what I'm going to be doing if I'm Classy Badger.
Absolutely. This is now the point where you were saying where we get to check our freebies. Whereas Caront is just going to give Yang a little pat on the head and say, hey, I'm going to go talk to your wife real quick, and we're going to see if maybe she has something more vanilla going on here, or if we've got something a little bit deeper. The better place for him to go would obviously be to Dwarf Castle, but doing that Sheila check, not wrong either. Like we said, it's another key item gate, and it still opens up more possibilities, whereas Classy Badger is getting this Earth Crystal here. But Caront, in fact, opting to go up Ordeals. So the really interesting thing is going to be, will Classy Badger look at the bosses we have here? Will he take one of the fights here with those hourglasses, or will he just be like, you know what, we'll come back later? But he is going to pick himself up 20 of those sirens, more than enough needed for grinding, especially with those hourglasses. Caront, though, taking that extra edge, though, and is going to be very happy with 3 edges, and I believe Rydia as well, getting rid of the cane. That is a very strong party if he can find maybe some more ninja swords to even purchase or something along those lines. But right now, the hardest problem with these edges is going to be keeping them equipped. Oh, we got rid of Tella? That's my mistake. Getting rid of the Tella for that, so meaning that when he sees those sirens, he's like, you know what, I don't need Tella anymore. But who his anchor is going to be, if it's not that Rydia, is going to be the actual question here then. So we have Classy Badger looking at those bosses, noping right out, casting exit, whereas Caront is finding the bosses again at the top of Ordeals that we know is going to be something very easy, especially with these extra levels. Looks like Classy is going to be doing that Sheila 1 check from talking to Yang, but at least going down the Fey March to at least activate it. The delayed check on the tails is still hopefully burning in his mind, maybe thinking that rat tail is something that could have there. But it's just there's a whole lot that's open for Classy, whether we have to find it on Earth or whether we find it up on the moon. That's where really I think the big decisions are going to be coming from here. And we see Caront getting through that fight very easily, swapping his characters around. Going to be seeing that Pale Dim. Going to take probably 2 or 3 hits from these edges. Rydia, if he still has that Dragon Whip to throw on, which I believe he sold, I could be mistaken. But Classy Badger is still doing the walkout. Looks like he may be even going for some loot. Nope, just walking through to go down further. Whereas we have, again, a couple of hits getting out through this fight.
Yeah, interesting choice from Classy Badger to walk out of Sylph Cave when there's the exit right at the right behind Yang there. But I think now is where we're going to start things getting a little more challenging for our runners, and we're kind of running out of the initial checks, in the underground, and so the fights are going to get a little more tougher. We still have a Panda fight or a Legend Sword and an Adamant. That's going to be crucial for us to going forward, and any and all those might be on the moon, which are fights that are not as easily dealt with as what we've seen so far.
Absolutely. And Classy finally going and taking this hovercraft over is going to be seeing, after checking Silvara's shops, we're going to see what is hiding behind that rat tail that we got so early on. Because that is going to be the really important thing, is what we have hanging in here. Whereas Caront is getting himself the sand ruby that we have, in addition to getting short work of this Odin fight right here. Yeah, as we see one boop from Edge and down it goes. And is going to be getting right on out, whereas Classy Badger is going to tell us exactly what we're going to be finding here. Turning the rat tail, or pink tail first, actually. You're going to see what the legendary is. Always do your objectives. Artemis Bow for Rosa, not a terrible item, not a great item. Probably not the weapon you're really looking for with all these edges. The rat tail, though, is going to give us the tower key. So full tower available, no keyless tower shenanigans happening. But that's the most important thing, is do we go now tower, or do we do that really long Earth Crystal check?
It'd be interesting to see what Classy Badger does. I mean, it seems like to me the play is definitely going to be the tower. Now we have 2 key item checks there. It's no longer a keyless tower, and the fight at the top is definitely going to be something that Classy Badger should be able to do at these levels, and then the fight before the super cannon is a piece of cake, so that should be no trouble whatsoever. But it looks like Classy Badger is doing an Evelyn check before we makes that play.
So this kind of makes a little bit of sense. The reason being is that he still has no good items for these edges, and is just not probably not confident with what he's got item-wise. Coffins are really nice finds here. The elixir, very pricey, but still a great item to just in general have. Maybe looking for, say, some ninja blades or something along those lines, or something to dart. Thunderclaw, an okay find, but not really necessary anymore. Tiara, a great item for both Rydia and Rosa. Buffs Rydia's magic stat, but also gives them great magic defense. Whereas Caront going to be giving another Hero of the People and is going to be turning in the Twin Harp. As we know, doesn't lead to an item here, anything objective-wise, but what it does lead to is fantastic tunes from Final Fantasy III. So after finding a bit of whammies in the Evelyn Cave Shop, it looks like he's going to be heading maybe back underground or heading up to the Earth Crystal. It looks like he is investing in that Earth Crystal check. Maybe if just nothing else, then we've got the Treasury, which is everyone's favorite plan. So we have a lot of fun things. The Treasury is the most dense location. And it is in fact time for everybody's favorite game.
Raise that treasury!
It was in fact confirmed as the Boundless Ocean from Final Fantasy III that we will have playing over this very short fight with Dark Knight Cecil once again. But as we can see, without a Cecil, that is a very medium treasury overall. We had a Crystal Sword in there, which is a fantastic sign. If anything else, great amount of money that we can have. Caront doing the wait, and we get to see a little bit more of the commentation from Dark Knight Cecil. But the treasury overall, the nicest thing that I really found out of there, the Artemis bow, pretty good. But the Mirasame is probably the top prize out of that chest, out of everything else. Mirasame plus Moonveil means that if they do want to do that Valvalis fight, that is an extremely free fight right now. So it makes that a little bit more of an enticing check if we don't find anything else in this tower check that Classy Badger is in fact taking. Caront, meanwhile, grabbing the item from there, is in fact going to be walking it out. And Classy Badger, the really curious thing is, are you going to be taking from top of tower down, or are you going to be going from middle to top? The middle fight is the easier one to be completely sure. It can ambush you a little bit, but it really depends on how long this wants to be. My personal preference here would be to find the alt gauntlet, just to make it a little bit longer. I swear I'm not ahead of the stream, I promise. So that is a fight that is a little bit spicy because you don't want to see it here, but it's gonna make this normally a 1 to 2 hit fight a fair bit longer. So for those who aren't sure, the alt gauntlet takes 5 fights from the surrounding area, and you have to go through it in the gauntlet fight as if you were doing it in Fable. So it goes from, instead of the imp captains and everything else, to a semi-rude level, can be up to rude level of fights if you're not completely comfortable with remembering some of these fights, which is nice to show off some of the enemies that we just don't see for experience or that we just don't see as a general whole. Whereas Caront is going to give us a second round of seeing what's in the treasury just to make sure we didn't miss anything. Where aside from the crystal sword, a whole lot of swords, some arrows, and again the power shirt is it's a solid treasury for a middling amount, but not like with the party we have, it's not extremely exciting, but still a fabulous treasury to have for a whole lot of money. Classy Badger still making great use of that still spell. Has a couple of people taking some hits. Radia's going to heal people up, and it does equivalent to virus level of damage for a free spell cast, so that's nothing that you can really ever disagree with. Whereas Caront, happy with that treasury, but looks like he wants to do a little bit more looting, is going to give us a check at these other chests here in Troya, and finding some okay items. That crystal armor is great to sell. And the unicorn, probably not bad to find either, but is a little, finds out stuck behind the doors and is going to get his way out.
And that's the beauty of that treasury check. I mean, not only do you get those top tier items, higher tier items from the Earth Crystal, but you also get a look at, you can also look at the chests that are adjacent in the other and the non-locked part of the treasury. And they can often find some surprising good results since there's so many chests there.
Absolutely, and Caront is in fact going to be taking that check up here for the two characters. Might see the fact that he's got that crystal sword and say, you know what, let's do another couple of character checks, see if we can get a crystal sword Cecil online. That is one of my favorite set of shenanigans. Whereas Classy Badger finding that the tofu style enemies, the puddings, not exactly happy to be smacked around with some swords, so it's instead going to say, you know what, I have a king of dragons on my side. Say hello to my favorite friend. So that would be the only fight where if we didn't have like the J items, or if we had nothing but bruisers on, where it would take them a long time to get through, and we probably almost reset worthy, because you have an enemy that just takes no damage from magic, and if you had no magic casters, I believe they have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 600 plus HP. So do the math on how many times you're going to have to be hitting a group of 6 of them.
Fortunately, though, we have Rydia and our Mist Dragon, which makes short work of those tofus, so we don't have to wait around for our bruisers to take out each one 600 hit point, 1 hit point, all 600 hit points one at a time.
Question in chat, Edge's Flame works on those, right? Yep, the tofu is one of the pudding classes that do not absorb fire, so fire does great work with flame. If you had gone through the hook route, then any of the other spells would work just fine too. Additionally, here at the top of tower, we have, here at the top of the Tower of Zot, to be specific, since we have 2 towers going on right now. This is, in fact, the 2 towers. We have an antlion, which is going to be nothing really threatening, but the kind of scary fight is over on Classy Badger's side.
Evil Wall is, this is a high hit point spot at the top of Tower of Babel. I mean, it's got all the hit points of, supposed in the vanilla game would have a Dr. Lube, Banalb, and then Dr. Luge's second form. And on top of that, there's a time limit for the Evil Wall fight. If it gets further enough out, starts casting instant death on your characters with the crush attack. So we're going to have to really pour out the damage on Evil Wall to make sure that doesn't happen.
Absolutely. And with the damage we see these edges doing, they're chewing through the HP really easily. The more annoying thing is the fact that there is not a whole lot of attack power. If this was a higher attack power spot, this would be probably scarier, because this Evil Wall is kind of quick and can do a lot of damage, but isn't really doing a bit of really work to these edges, hitting them for about 200 and hitting that cane for 70. Whereas we have Rosa as our first character, bit of French vanilla. I'm here for this. We're about to see what we have is the secondary character being yet another Rosa. French Vanilla and Vanilla Rosa in the same spots. That's a trifecta we see right here, though. We have 3 edges, and now we have the 3 Rosas. Now, the really spicy thing here would be if Caront actually took those Rosas. We kind of have the equipment for them. We have 2 extra Artemis bows and a fair amount of arrows. We could have had some Zerka Rosa strats, which would be something I would have loved to have seen. But instead, all we have is a Mom Bomb, and we have our regular squad that we have going.
Yeah, Rosa, as in addition to being a White Wizard, she's also really talented with a bow and arrow, and there's some really good equipment out there that, especially if you're fighting an opponent that's weak against arrows, Rosa can be a very exceptional fighter for. So don't rule her out as a fighter in addition to a White Wizard, which is one of the reasons why that she's probably the best character in all Final Fantasy IV.
Whereas here at the top of the tower, Classybadger finds part of another objective. That is an adamant. That is something you absolutely enjoy seeing up here. If we in fact see maybe the Legend Sword from here, we could have the Pan being an absolutely dead objective when finishing this tower. That is, though, the really important thing. That is Classybadger's 10th key item. That means he's a double XP range.
And that's going to be that 10 and that boost is going to give with the 10 key items and give him double experience points. That will be, a very nice boost in getting his party up to the levels that he wants to take down Zeromus. So he is in a really good spot right now, and it'd be an even better spot depending on what this key item is at the bottom of Tower of Babel.
Ooh, Caront finding a bit of a whammy. We have just a crystal glove from the top of that Earth Tower. The real reward was the treasury and, in fact, the exit we learned along the way. Rosa getting that exit spell with the rest of his team means that he can dive in and out of caves a little bit better, whereas he's going to see what's going on, and Classybadger is going to grab himself this other key item. Looks like Caront's actually turning in that package, seeing we're getting. That's another white mage. That is a Porum. Definitely not a character we're really needing. We just ditched 2 Rosas. I don't think we're going to be taking a Porum here.
Porum is definitely the lesser of the 2 white mages. She learns most spells at a longer rate, and she has a lot lower hit points. So Rosa is definitely the white mage of choice.
So Tower Key, a bit of a whammy as well. That's a Zeus Gauntlet. Again, a really strong weapon or set of armor for any one of his physical fighters. But this is the point where he can just start grinding out some grinding out some eggs. But this does mean that the moon, for the first time in a hot minute, is not haunted. Moon is required. We got to find out where that either Legend Sword or where that Pan is hiding out. Oh, I did forget about the Sheila 1 check. We've done so many other checks. Sheila could have it, as well as the Valvalis fight. So there's 2 checks that are still here on the Earth where we might still have it. Hopefully one of them could be behind that Valvalis, see if somebody takes it cheekily, but I don't think anybody's going to be going down for that fight anytime soon. Caront taking that Wyvern really easily up, getting up the Starveil, whereas Classybadger finds himself that early access back to the moon. That is a pass from Sheila 1. That is a really nice check, whereas Caront, already knowing about this vanilla Golbez, sees an old man, said, I got rid of one of you, we're not taking another one.
Yeah, the pass is actually a really good find under these objectives because the remaining 2 ones we have, Return the Pan to Yang's Wife, Forge the Crystal, we're going to require, even if the value was found on the moon, it's going to require our runners to go back down to the Earth and to the Underworld. So, having the pass just saves them the extra trip of having to take the big whale back up to the moon all the way through the lunar subterranean to get to Zeromus. Much quicker with the pass.
Absolutely. And looks like Classy Badger not wanting to take on those moon bosses yet. Really not wanting to go take on that Valvalis. Is like, you know what? I haven't been to Zot yet. Let's go check out what's going on here. Whereas Caront has a Rosa and his one edge up, and they're going to be making most likely pretty quick work of this Golbez right here. Okay, so since we kind of know that this is going to lead to nothing, Rumblefish, where do you think we're going to be? Where do you think that our progression is? Do we have to go on the moon? Because we have Bahamut X here as one of our tracker, do we in fact have value at cave value? Or where do you think we're going to find our value today?
Well, I mean, the probability is our value is going to be on the moon. We need, either one of two key items. We need either the Legend Sword, or we need to have the Pan to get things going. So, and then there are 7 possible checks on the moon. You know, chances are it's just going to be a behind the ribbon spot, because that ribbon fight on the moon gives us 2 key items and may give us, 2 options as a way to wrap up this seed. But let's not rule out the possibility as it is behind Valvalis and Feymarch. I mean, that is I think it's like a 1 in 8 chance now, as if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, it's not, probably isn't there, but it would definitely be a challenge for our runners to complete the seed. And also, like, we have 2 options too. So I guess even if our runners full cleared the moon, they're going to get one of the 2, and then have to do the Valvalis slide. But it'd be just it'd be interesting nonetheless to see if our runners take on Valvalis to make it happen.
Absolutely, and the important thing is exactly how that chain is going to go about. Example, we have we do have the fact that we have 1 key item left really to find, and one could chain into another. In theory, we could find the Pan, and then Sylph could have the Legend Sword right there. At that point, if you've got both of those key items, do you go and talk to Sheila, or do you just forge the sword and come right back up and hit that pass up? What would you do if you found one after then?
Well, in that case, I mean, like, since both, getting go mode, getting the crystal would be about pretty easily done either by forging the crystal or by just talking to Sheila again, I would have to go with forge the crystal, because in addition to, checking off an objective, you would also have access to Kolkol's shop, and Kolkol has the goods. He has a random assortment of some really high-class endgame items that are very pricey, but will give you a really, really excellent boost when you're taking on the Z fight, and can make things go a lot quicker. Now, you have to, it'll take up some time to do the shopping there, but it's almost, I think it's worth it to do that to get the extra boost, so you may survive a few of those big bangs a little bit more easily.
Absolutely, and Caront getting through that Golbez fight, gets himself his pink tail, runs right up to turn that in, gets his tower key, might chase that down. I probably would too if I was in his position, but we all do know that there is at least an adamant up there, which is the most important thing. But how you one size blade. So another one of the nice things about this randomizer is almost all of the text is completely changed. So every NPC that said something says something completely different, whether it be relevant to a game mechanic or just a little bit of a meme that's going on. This one is more in reference to the censored North American version versus the Japanese version of Final Fantasy IV, which is the Final Fantasy II. The Japanese version has a blade that is there that comes down, whereas to cut people, as opposed to crushing them with a ball. Both are fairly gruesome in my opinion, but I guess the blade is more of a visual thing.
Yeah, it kind of begs the question as to why the censors thought being crushed to death was somehow better than being sliced in 2. I don't really quite, both would definitely be very fatal and both would be very gruesome, and I don't really understand why that they made the change when they made the port to North America. But that's just kind of some more of the backstory behind the production of Final Fantasy IV, which has a lot of really interesting tidbits.
Exactly. Can't answer that. 90 censorship. We don't know any better than that. But Caront is content with his item count, key item count. It looks like he is also rocking 10 key items, so he's going to be doing his double XP, getting his grind going. Whereas Classy Badger defeats that Mom Bomb and is going to be found with just a set of crystal gloves and going to see exactly where he goes from now on. So again, Rumble, the big question is with these levels that you're going to be getting, especially on Caront's side, or even if Classy Badger does something similar, what are you going to be doing now? Do you go and do you grab the Alice fight because you've got the power overwhelming for it? Do you go to the moon and start checking those fights because you got to come down anyways? Where's your mind at if you're in these runner shoes right now?
My mind is at probability and proximity. So if I were like Karen's side, I forget, I might do the Valvalis fight because Feymarch is really close to where I'm doing my grind right now. Looks like Kelsey Badger's also going underground. If I were still in the overworld, I probably would actually go to the moon because the probability is that what we're looking for is on the moon. And there's also, with hourglasses and sirens, good grind there. However, like since we're looking for 2 key items and we only would need 1 to get the crystal, I would actually probably check out some of the, what I call like the closer items checks on the moon. That is Bahamut Cave and the Murasame fight, because that doesn't require quite so much of a journey into the lunar subterranean. So, if I just found 1 of the 2 items that I needed, I wouldn't have to make the journey all the way through. I could exit out and without having spent a lot of time into venturing into the lunar subterranean. Then go back onto the Earth, wrap up loose ends, and take on Zeromus.
Absolutely, and I'm kind of the same way. I believe going top down for a couple of reasons. One being, nobody else really seems to enjoy going top down. They go, oh, let's go to the middle where the D-Lunar fight is, because that's where you're getting the most dense checks. However, if you go top down and you find something, then, oh, well, I'm already done here. I don't need to go any further down. That's kind of where I like to think about it. It's a nice little, no one likes to generally do this as opposed to a one-off, so that can kind of swing things in your favor. It's not the most efficient, but it's still one of the more sassier checks, in my personal opinion. But we do have here Caront and Classy Badger grinding on both sides. What I want to do is I want to give a quick shout out to these runners and to our team behind the scenes that you guys love to see, Jofus Manaho and Bahamut X doing the tracking and the restreaming. That both of them are doing a fantastic job. The fact that we can bring these matches to you and that Rumblefish and I can be showing this off. And again, Caront and Classy Badger for being on and being here and giving us this great show. And again, you Rumblefish for joining the commentary booth. And it's been a fantastic afternoon so far.
Yeah, this is definitely being shaking up to be a really interesting seed. We're just kind of waiting to find out where the next item is to get us the crystal, and it really could be in any number of places right now, and any number of challenges could be be in our way before that happens.
Indeed, and the nice thing is this isn't going to be the only race we have going on today. We actually have another one that is in progress right now. There is Marty and Vampstar, both 1-1. That's being shown on Randomania right now, and then later on this evening we have Lafloof and Commander Leonhardt. Both of them are doing their run. They are 2-2. It's to see who gets into which specific play-in group, and that's going to be on RPG Limit Break at 8 o'clock tonight Eastern. So we got a whole bunch of free enterprise, even though this is the last day for these Hook and Magma routes. We then will have the play-ins, and then that's where a lot of things are going to be decided, where changes from this one-on-one group to a whole bunch of people running at the same time and seeing who can buy for those last positions that we have available.
Yeah, the play-in races are going to be a hot mess. So the top runners in those races are going to be allowed to advance to the next phase of the league, the tables, and the others will have to go home, and it's going to be basically every runner for themselves in that. So that'll be definitely a fun race to watch.
Absolutely, and there's a whole bunch of runners that have been doing so fantastically well. Even the ones who have been who haven't made it quite as far. The races have been super interesting, and it's always been great to learn different things and seeing different people's strategies and learning. Hey, maybe my way isn't always the greatest. But speaking of things that are learning, Classy Badger learned all the spells that he wants to get, has enough levels, and looks like he decides that Valvalis not a fight I want to take, and is heading straight on up to the moon after taking a quick nap in the lunar whale. And also, speaking about learning, if you think that something like this is absolutely fun and you're like, hey, this is a great time, I wouldn't mind learning how to do this. This is more of like the higher end flags. Like these seats can be customized however you want, as easy or as hard as you want, as vanilla or as French vanilla as you'd like them to be. We have the ability to fully change however you want it to be. If you want power overwhelming, you can have T-Wildish and T-Wild and S-Wild, where you have all the high tier gear fully available for you. You can make it hard to the point where you have, say, an entire squad of nothing but Tellas going around and trying to boot things with their stabs as old men. And if that's something that really interests you, you guys should 100% come and check out the Discord, full of great welcoming people. I've been around since about last October, and I've learned way more than I ever expected I would have. And the community's been absolutely inviting, and it's a great squad to learn from, and to even learn some things from the original Final Fantasy IV that I just never knew existed. You see Caront is also done with his grind, has cracked more than enough eggs. Looks like he's going to the Dwarf Castle to grab himself a heal. Might be heading up to that tower next, grabbing a free heal as opposed to needing multiple tents, because I don't believe he's picked up any cabins. But yeah, going to be finding himself that adamant at the top of tower very, very quickly. Whereas Classy Badger says hi to Rosa on the moon, says, you know what, I would have liked to have you earlier, but not right now, and is going to be doing our first dive into the lunar subterrane to see which boss he goes through first. Does he go top down or bottom down? Looks like we have a top down route going.
Yeah, the Murasame fight spot is probably one of the easier, relatively speaking, fights in the lunar subterrane. You know, it still packs a punch. It can be really hard if you're lower level, but now that Classy Badger has done all that grinding, I don't think it should be much of a challenge.
Especially not when you find a free boss like Water Hag. I was just about to bring up, we've seen a lot of our free bosses unavailable here. We hadn't seen Water Hag, we haven't seen Dark Imps, and we haven't seen our Baron Guards, so there is still a lot of free fights that this moon could be holding right here. Water Hag, in fact, being one of the freer fights in a spot that doesn't punch strong. 3 hits, it goes down, and that is a fight that is going to be very easy. Yeah, as you see, Kain taking 190 damage. This is a super free fight, and an absolute free key item, and experience even for these fighters. Rosa is just pressing that 1800 HP mark. These are Z levels, a little bit extra, it never hurts. But the key item that we're going to find is a Luca key, which is nice to have, but since we did the warp glitch, not necessary for anything whatsoever.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, we already have our 10 key items, so the Luca key isn't really adding anything in terms of that. You know, and also none of these flags, we already did our item check behind the Luca key with the Dwarf Castle glitch warp, and so it doesn't really give us a whole lot except for the extra experience points in that fight, which is not bad. I mean, we got, like, what was it, like 100,000 or something? So, I mean, nothing just needs that.
Exactly, a couple more levels for the casters, for Rosa specifically, to give her the HP that she needs to start surviving those big bangs if Rydia goes down and we can't nerf anything, and you have 3 Zerkers just swinging wildly to the point where you can just cure 4 and go. Every little bit helps, and also means that these other fights are going to be just that little bit easier. whereas Caront is getting himself through this lovely alt gauntlet that I'm pretty sure he would have enjoyed fighting maybe a little bit sooner, but again, going to be making extreme short work with these fights. And the answer to this question is going to come very soon. The really curious thing is, where is Classy Badger going to go? Is he going to go from the middle out, or is he now just going to keep the top down? It looks like he is in fact going the top down. I'm going to be checking out that Wyvern altar, one of the more out of the way ones, but again, top down, being very methodical about this lunar subterranean check.
And again, that's regardless of what the key item is yielded, that Wyvern spot yields a lot of experience points. So get a little extra boost, which would be very welcome.
I was about to say, taking a very bold check going in without a save. This could be. There are still some rude bosses that are available. There is one of my favorites, Kainazo, that can be anywhere. But instead, we have a French vanilla punching bag. We have a plague. This isn't going to be anything scary, no matter where you find it, be it as one of the first or one of your last boss checks. This is basically berserk up your fighters, get through its HP, and you'll be fine. Because one of the things that I learned from doing Free Enterprise is, if you have your queue clogged with multiple fighters doing auto commands through berserk, that timer will never hit 0 and you will never die, but Plague will eventually go down.
Plague can be, if you have the wrong setup, can be an unfortunate find, especially early on when you don't have a whole lot of firepower. But I mean, Classy Badger has got all the levels he needs and more to take out this fight.
Absolutely. Again, Avenger Kane from the very start of the seed, a 100% MVP, and is getting all this damage out as quick as he can, plus these two edges, one being berserk, one not being berserk, while he reses up that Rydia to reset the count, most likely, just to make sure everyone's fine. But again, this is how the vanilla strategy went. It's easy to go through. Kill off a character, res it up. It resets count if it sees that there is no count on one specific character. But as you see, DPS super strong, 130k almost, and 2 levels on pretty much everybody. I think that's Artemis bow number 4 that we found in the seed so far. A lot of bows for these characters, and Caront finding himself the evil wall says, you know what, we're just going to be getting out some damage, throws out the Bahamut, makes very, very short work of that wall with those fast, strong fighters. And we've got the adamant going on here. So yeah, we could have equipped every single one of those roses with an Artemis bow, not arrows, but at least the bow, and we could have had a very interesting last party. Whereas Classy Badger gonna go down. We're gonna see what fight he tackles next, and what part of the moon is or is not haunted. The really rude thing would be to find, say, that would still be able to stymie our runners would be a Kainazo here sitting at D-Lunars, because that takes the HP from both of those fights, both those enemies, and combines it into one. That would be a 36,000 HP Kainazo that you would have to get through before that first wave goes off, which is his HP percentage based to your entire team. So that would be a very, very rough hit. His team could... Look, you're supposed to be next door, Kainazo. Come on, I was building a narrative here. Whereas here with the Plague Spot, a lot less HP instead of Liquid 36. You're looking at something closer to, I believe, about the 9-ish K HP, maybe 12. I can't remember the stats off the top of my head, but it's it's a very much less scary fight, and this opening wave is going to do a lot of a tickle, especially with these Canes and this Cane and these edges throwing out multiple thousands damage. Yeah, Cane himself popping up 3,500 right there. I wouldn't even try to find a way to lit him so that he can just keep doing his wave and maybe even hit the shell before the first one comes out.
Yeah, I don't think there should be any trouble whatsoever in this fight, given the damage that we're seeing right now. But pop quiz, Dathus, do you know what the 4 fiends in this Final Fantasy IV, Milan, Kainazo, Velvelis, and Rubicant, are named after?
Actually, I do not believe I do. What are they named after?
All right, it's really obscure, but I think it's the 13th century poem Dante's Inferno. They're named after 4 demons in that epic poem that you can. They're all doing various forms of nastiness in hell as Dante goes through hell, and Virgil the poet shows him. I am not sure how the developers of Final Fantasy IV in Japan were aware of that, but they did somehow take the names of demons from Dante's Inferno to make this game, and they have been kind of bastardized a little bit in the English version. It's supposed to be Skameleon, but it got shortened to Milan. Valvalis is actually Barbarisha in the Japanese, but Kanazo and Rubicante are still the same. So just a little bit of trivia for Final Fantasy IV there.
Interesting. That's really nice. I'm going to say the names were because of the range that they had to put them in. However, what we did find here after finding that Kainazo, we do have a pan. C1assybadger officially going to be able to light up that third circle when he gets down and smacks Pang awake and returns it. But that is in fact go mode for C1assybadger. We have ourselves a run, whereas Caront finds himself elements over here on the right-hand side of the screen, which does mean that the very first fight that gave us our key item was Rubicante hanging out in Baron Castle. So the nice thing is we're going to have a really quick find of to see 2 different key item checks to see what we had hidden here left on the Earth. That'll give us kind of a bit of an idea if there was anything left here on the Earth aside from the spoon, or maybe the Legend Sword could be right here. As I said, we could have the Legend Sword come right from the Sylphs themselves. It'd be very interesting. Caront, though, makes very quick work of those elements. The value in K value, it would only have been if there's a Cecil. Now, there is still 2 character checks that we haven't done. We haven't done the Giant of Babel, and we haven't had a chance to do Baron because they just haven't been required. But Cecil is currently not appearing in the seed, but he could be around.
And that Crystal Sword will make Cecil extra powerful. But fortunately, we just don't have anyone Cecil to build right now. And it looks like the pan yielded kind of 2 objectives. So we got the Legend Sword from the Sylph there after whacking Yang with the pan. So that pan is super duper required in this seed. And
guys, I'm not a witch, I promise. Look, just because I called that earlier. But yeah, as we see, we have Forge. What is he going to do? Looks like he's going to, in fact, just go do Sheila and is going to be returning the pan to her, and then going to be on his way to fight Zeromus. But that is, in fact, a long chain, or actually not even a long chain. We had early access to that Darkness Crystal, which could have given us that fight. But Kainazo absolutely would have been a fight that you wouldn't want to take at low levels. A couple questions in chat. Which one is faster, Sylph Cave or here? I would honestly think, I believe forging would be faster because you don't have to do the overworld transition so early on, as well as walking out of the castle is probably a little bit slower than doing the forge. I could be wrong because of the cutscene, especially if you check those other the other shops while you're at it. And additionally, the Excal could be an item that you dart with those edges, but that's going to be a choice back and forth. It's more personal, and I want to see someone do the math on that, but I'm not 100% sure which would really be faster. Caront doing a kind of similar plan to C1assybadger, going from top down, but went from all the way down to the K value, getting through that fight, and is going to be rewarded with just the Luca key. See which fight he takes out next as he goes down this lunar subterrane. Whereas Classy Badger heals up in Fable and looks like he's heading over to turn in that pass so he can start making his way down. But we have ourselves a final trek that we have going on. Doing some last item checks, last second management, which again, hardest boss in Free Enterprise, gets that crystal up there. The one thing we haven't really seen in these shops at all, we didn't see any silk webs this seed, which means that he will not have the ability to slow down Zeromus naturally, aside from casting that slow spell twice on Rosa.
Right, I mean, what's good about the silk web is that there's actually, you can get slow and then even more slow. In Final Fantasy XIV, and then the slow spell is cast by a white wizard will give you 1 tick of slowness, but Silk will give you 2. So that's why the item is superior than the spell. Also, the spell actually takes some time to cast too. So, but that should not be a problem. I mean, that'll make the fight like a degree more difficult, but not overwhelmingly so.
Speaking of things that are overwhelming, we have a fair bit of flags being thrown out in the chat. Something about a question mark with a letter. Rumblefish, do you have any idea what's going on in chat right now?
Right. Whose butt are we going to be kicking today? And one of the things that is randomized in the Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise is the sprite for the final boss. Zeromus is not a randomized fight. He's exactly the same in every seed, but the sprite that we used is one of many, as put in by our Scala Kitty, one of our who's basically behind the art in our the Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise.
Absolutely, there's something along the lines of 450 plus versions of Zeromus that we've seen. Scala, a very much wizard with these, does a great job. Some of them are from a lot of other games, whether they be other Final Fantasies or from other just strictly RPG games, or even other video games where they're less RPGs, or even really weird things, because there's a little potato in here, which is in fact my personal favorite. So we're going to see which one we have, and this one is actually one of my favorite Final Fantasies. This is from Final Fantasy XI. This is Camlanot, one of the guys from the storyline. I believe it was Rise of Zillart. A little bit of trivia back here. He's a character that you fight is great. You fight him and his brother later on in the storyline. Again, one of my favorites.
So yeah, we were staying within the Final Fantasy universe, going one of the later Final Fantasies here, and a multiplayer version of Final Fantasy at that. Sprite looks pretty great though. I mean, normally he's in 3 dimensions in Final Fantasy XI, but whoever designed that 2-dimensional sprite is quite an artist.
I'm going to take a guess that it's from Record Keeper. Yeah, and Scala Kitty, in fact, as I'm questioning, it is from Final Fantasy Record Keeper, where she gets a lot of her sprite work from. There's some of the other Final Fantasies crossover events that have been done, and it makes her job a whole lot easier. She's not doing them all from scratch, but again, to import it over is still an act of wizardry that I will never understand, and we'll just let her do the magic that she continues to do. Speaking of magic, we have Classy Badger doing some good work and amount of damage. I think that's like 3k plus for most of his hits. 2.5 from Kane, as of course he tells me I'm wrong. And Caront on the side, getting through that Bahamut, and is finding himself these double items. Unfortunately, not going to find anything aside from just the Baron key. So that's a nice key item to find if it's nothing else but a rabbit hole. Second big bang coming out here on Classy Badger's side. It's going to be another nerfed one. So he's doing a fantastic job in nerfing these spells and getting them all off, using Iridia as a chemist of sorts, throwing out those Cure 3s so that Rosa doesn't have to do all the hard work, even though those Cure 4s do more than enough healing for nerf big bangs.
Right, and nerfing those big bangs can be tricky. You want to get, in order to nerf it, you have to cast a spell on Zeromus right at some point after he shakes. However, if you do it too soon, then it's not going to work, and if you do it too late, then you could risk the possibility of the big bang going off before you have a chance to nerf. So your timing has to be just right about it. On top of that, like once you hit Zeromus with a spell, he's going to counter attack, most likely with nuke. And if that nuke goes off on the wrong character, you could be in trouble.
Absolutely. It looks like he's doing all of his triggering of the counter nuke with the slow. That's a really smart way because, again, you have the one slow to bring him down, and the second one, which will bring him down to even that double slow cast. But the big thing about nerfing, it's not just about casting it on the right time. You also have to make sure it's dependent on what your relative agility is for the characters, which is probably the bigger one to figure out over all others. He did get that nerf slow, and then is also casting Bahamut with Rydia. I believe, if I remember correctly, that's going to trigger a counter nuke that also, the counter virus, which sets his spell power back up to the maximum. That is something that those who know this script a lot better than me will be able to answer, but I'm never 100% sure. On the right-hand side, while we have Classy Badger getting through this fight, Caront is in fact in go mode, gets that pan, and is getting leaving because he found everything he needs. Going to be turning that in, and also going to be finding himself the X-Cal. So there's a Legend Sword. So we're going to see, do we have 1, 2, and 4 on his side, or are we going to have 2, 3, and 4 like what we have for Classy? And on Classy Badger's side, speaking of, we have rocks. That's nothing to be afraid of. So he's in the final phase of the Zeromus fight. We're not going to see any big bangs. We're going to see a lot of rocks, and we're going to see a lot of swinging and Bahamut until this fight's done. And there's the flash, there's the finish. Kamlanatmus goes down. Get your GGs out in chat. That is an official time of, we get that pulled up on the screen in just a moment. Looks like, I'm going to guess around 1:33:35-ish. But we are in fact joined by Classy Badger. GG's on your finish, my friend.
Yeah, GG.
Guys. Yeah, that was definitely a fun race.
So, I mean, you had some, you took us through some turns, like, on both on the overworld, the underworld, and the moon. One thing that really stuck out to me was, like, how you basically got double the value in Dwarf Castle. What, you got I think it was the pink tail when you, the warp glitch, and then you got the hook, pardon me, I got it reversed. You got the hook from the castle itself, hook from the warp glitch, and you got the pink tail from the castle itself. So what was going through your head when that was happening?
So this race, I really was happy with this race because I got to use a lot of the things I've learned throughout this league. So like coming into this league, I did not know about how the warp glitch worked, and that actually cost me one of my races early. So this time I got to use the warp glitch, and it paid off huge here. That I effectively got, like you said, the hook that I knew was going to be able to let me turn into Pinktail and the Pinktail, and also I knew it was going to give me other checks that I wanted to do for like things like for Silk Webs and Elven Cave. So I was really happy about that. Watching one of the other streams, actually like 2 days before this race, I had learned about the Dwarf Axe being the only weapon that can give Kane a back row glitch. And looking at this party, I was just like, oh man, I'm going to need to find a boomerang to be able to put one of the edges in the back row. But then sure enough, I found the Dwarf Axe. I was like, oh, this is perfect. I just learned about this. I can use this to get Kane in my back row, and that would be a great spot for him. So I was really happy about this one because I've got to use, like I said, quite a few things that I learned throughout this entire time in the league. So
yeah, just to show that this randomizer is all sorts of like insights about how to do things that aren't exactly very apparent, that you have to kind of learn as you go, which makes it all the more fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was one of those huge, it was like one of those galaxy brain moments where I'm like, I'm actually getting to use everything that I was learning, so I was super happy about that. But I do feel like this seed kind of set, like, it kind of gave you your team right away from the beginning. I mean, you started off with a Kane and an Edge, and then you found like a Gungear Spear really early, and then I think also in the Antlion Cave you also found, that's where you found the Avenger, so it's just like, okay, well, I'm kind of already set, and then I found the second Edge, so I was just like, okay, now I'm just looking for a Rosa or a White Mage. Sure enough, I found that. So I was like, all right, I guess we've got the Rydia, and we'll just give her the Cursed Ring, and we're kind of good to go through most of this seed.
Yeah, the seed was very generous early on. Seeing right now on as Caront, your opponent Caront is still going, he is doing a different path to wrap things up, moving forward to the crystal to get his final objective done. And as well as seeing the Coco shop, he's putting a lot of effort into getting the crystal rings that are in the shop on each of the characters, which will be a big boon in the Zeromus fight.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, because like I got to that moment where basically by getting the pan, you got the adamant, or the legend sword, and I actually did have a moment where I was like, okay, which is technically quicker? Is it gonna be quicker for me to forge the adamant and then go up to, because I had the pass to go to Troya and use the pass there, or was it gonna be quicker to go use the pan, turn that in, and then go to Troya? And then my thinking was that, well, I don't have any tents and I need to heal up, so I need to find a place that I can hit an in real quick. So that's why I decided to go to, that's why I decided to go to Fable, turn in the pan, rest there, and then head over to Troya to use the pass. So that was kind of my thinking on that.
And it showed us any number of ways you could have done to approach the seed or wrap it up. And I'm sure you'll be able to find out where you and Caront diverge when you review the VOD.
Yeah, I am kind of interested because I felt I was feeling a little bit behind because I thought that I had waited a little bit on doing my sirens because I was like, okay, well, I really don't want to dive the moon unless I absolutely have to. And I've been bit in the butt before by going underleveled into the moon. So I was like, okay, well, I've got my 10 key items now. Let me go down and do a stack or like half a stack of sirens. This might take me a little bit longer, but it'll put me in a better position for going into the moon. I would also be interested to see if maybe he didn't right away go to the Mist Dragon to get the magma key. Like maybe he forgot to go drop it off at Rose's mom, because that's one of those things that I had to remind myself of. Oh, I found the Mist Dragon. I need to remember to turn this in.
Yeah, you guys both took a little bit of time for finding that Mist Dragon and going into the Baron Inn. Also, for a little additional, while you were talking about the Fable area, and you're saying you're still learning some things, so this is a nice little thing to point out. Whenever you go into the Zeromus fight, it actually gives you a full heal, so you don't need to heal ahead of time. So that's just little things you learn and little optimizations. I didn't even know that until the first time myself, so it's little bonuses that speed things up for future runs, right?
Yeah, for how many ties we've seen and like extremely close finishes in this league so far, something like that, even just like that, was that maybe 5 seconds that it takes to heal at an inn? Probably a little bit more, I guess probably closer to 10 seconds would actually be huge in a very, very close race. And I've had some races that were off stream where it's like literally about a 10-second difference, so that's actually good to know for the future. Yeah, I was happy to just get one on the board. Even though I'm not advancing, it always feels good to get that one. Going into this, I know both me and Caront were kind of like, oh, we just want to get one on the board, so it feels bad that like only one person can get that one win. But even if I didn't get this one, I was still going to be happy with my performance on this race. Like I said, I got to apply all that stuff that I learned. So even if I'd lost, it'd still be like, yeah, I lost, but I'm learning to apply the stuff that I've learned throughout racing this.
Absolutely, and you've put on one heck of a show for us today. And again, like you said, you've come a long way. And for someone who's only picked up the randomizer very recently, as you said, you are doing one heck of a job of showing off a fair amount of skill. Like you still with some technical stuff that you showed off that was like, you may think, oh, well, this isn't impressive. No, you did a lot of things very right, knowing a lot of the different things, and your pathing was even very well done. You did a lot of what a lot of people would have done, full clearing the overworld before checking, even hoping. Thankfully, you did see that hook route, but there's a lot on the overworld to check, though.
Yeah, I actually had a moment where I could not remember, because I know Bahamut could not lock the underground, but I was not sure if the moon cannot lock underground, because I had this very scary moment where I was like, oh man, am I gonna have to find a way to level up to be able to go to the moon to get underground? Or I was like, okay, am I gonna have to just start hunting like the the bosses that normally don't have a check, looking for Mist Dragon, knowing that's there. So I was kind of glad that I found the Mist Dragon and it wasn't really out of the way. So I was like, okay, fine.
So for the future, what it is there are only 3 bosses that cannot gate the underground access. It is Wyvern, it is Golbez, and it is Valvalis. They cannot gate the only underground access. If you run into one of those bosses on your routing and you see them, you know that this could be underground access, but it's say if it's the hook, that means that it will not be the only way and that the magma key is available on the overworld somewhere else. You getting that darkness crystal early just meant you had the darkness crystal area, like the entirety of the moon, open to you as an early on. It didn't mean that those bosses or like the moon could have had a way down, but would not have had the only way down, because it's again the logical progression of overworld to underground to moon with these flags.
Okay. Yeah, I do know, I forget where it was, but where you ran into Werven and Golbez, like back to back. I think that was Dwarf Castle. I knew, I was like, oh, this is going to be rough, but I think that's where they were. I think it was Dwarf Castle.
Yep, it was, and you got through those fights pretty handily. Again, you got mega nuked by the first one, but you adjusted your strategy, lowered your speed, threw on that curse ring, and you took that fight, both those fight actually, very easily.
Yeah, what I was afraid of is I didn't know if, because I know the Golbez does the Shadow Dragon thing. I was like, well, if I only have one party member, is he just going to eat the one party member, or did it kind of do like what it does, where he comes in and he goes away? And I was really happy with that, because I was just like, well, here's a gamble that we're going to have to try.
Yep, Shadow Dragon just does the same thing as the vanilla game, brings you down to 1 slot, but in this with 2 party members left. So that's why you see a lot of people, before they know this is Zeromus, will do one of 2 things: either piggy/mini their characters, or throw themselves down to the 2 characters that they want alive and go from there.
Good to know.
So overall, you said you're out of the tournament, but you did a fantastic showing. What were your opinion on these flags as an overall? Seeing the different abilities and like the T Wildish and such like that. What were your thoughts about these flags and how the tournament went through?
So just as a tournament overall, it was absolutely amazing. I've told Shala and a couple other people this. The structure for this tournament, as someone who helps run races for some of the other randomizers, like the structure for this thing was like a PhD level tournament, where it's like, oh man, you went 0-3 in your group stage, well, don't worry, I've got you. You're going to go into the second route, and then if you go even just 3-0 in there, or even just 2-1 in there, you're going to have a chance to play and still to get to the table stage. So this was absolutely designed amazingly. The amount of work it must have taken to planning like this kind of a tournament structure is impressive. The flags, I really liked them. You definitely had some very, very quick seeds, and you had some very slower seeds. And the objectives definitely make each game feel even different from the normal style of randomizer. Because we all know it's normally like, oh, you're going to go through this trail and you're going to find this one item that is going to get you, you're going to find the crystal somewhere and then you're in go mode. Whereas this reminded me kind of a lot more, like I play a lot of Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide, where like it's very similar to this, where me and Caront might have had 2 entirely different objectives that we did. Like there's the possibility that we forked and did a different objective path, basically, and that's kind of really fun too, because you can lose an idea of how close behind you your opponent probably is, because you know he could be on a completely different path. So I loved that as well.
And Caront right now entering the Zeromus fight, about ready to take things on to wrap up this seed.
You shouldn't probably have any issues with that fight either. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what his team composition is, but I think there was definitely enough in this seed. And if you were saying he's grabbing those crystal rings, you should be able to get through it no problem as well.
Right. I mean, he's definitely got a little more beef heading than the Z fight than you had, so
yeah,
should be a piece of cake.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, this seed kind of gave you everything you needed to be able to kind of get to Zeromus and just be like, well, you're actually kind of the least of my worries right now. So.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much, Pastor Badger. Really appreciate the runs you've done here, and hope to see you in future races.
Definitely be hopping in for the community races once those start back up. I'm really excited to watch the table stage, so I can kind of pick up even more tech from even more experienced runners. Like, really want to see. I've been busy with real life, but I really want to watch Dusty Griff. He was in my seed. He trounced me thoroughly. blew me out of the water, so I'm kind of rooting for him because I want to see just how well he's doing. As well as just seeing Invulnerable and some of the others who are kind of the heavyweights that are going into the table seed. So
fantastic. Well, again, GG's, thanks very much for showing up, and we look to see you again in the community races that are going to be coming forward.
GG's, thanks guys.
All right, and again, that was Classy Badger with his one win over here against Caront in the last bit of the hook route on 133.32. Fantastically well run. Give him a little bit of love. Show him a follow if you enjoyed seeing on here. Whereas we have Caront, he's fighting his Camlonimus and is putting to work a pretty similar fight. The team comps are pretty much the same. Only difference is we've got so actually both have the Ridias sitting here in the middle. Getting that first big bang coming out, I believe there was a nerf involved with that one. Even if that wasn't nerfed, if that was nerfed, that was a very high roll, but if not nerfed, a very, very good roll. And with the higher levels than I believe Classy Badger had from taking that extra fight with the Bahamut at the D-Lunar fight, we have a fair bit more damage coming out from these 3 edges versus the 2 edges, 1 cane. Everyone popping out 2,500 to 3+K damage. Again, you're going to see maybe that second big bang have the Cure 4s come out and heal everybody up, but it's going to be very, very short work with these Berserks coming out from Rose's side.
Yeah, Caront also has the benefits of the equipment that he got in the Coco item shop, and those crystal rings are going to really speed up those edges.
Indeed, with that little extra bit of agility, it allows Rydia, even with that cursed ring, if she gains some, to keep her at relative agility 1, so that they get even more turns out by comparison to what Zeromus would, which is why there's a whole lot of swinging of some ninja swords over on his side and not a whole lot of big bangs. As I say it happens there. And going to take this full unnerfed one to the face, but with all those ribbons and crystal rings, great amount of magic defense. Taking 1,400 from an unnerfed is a pittance of like less than half their HP. Yeah, those edges thrown out there. The only problem is, again, the black hole, which resets all of the Berserk status. Got to put those back on, either through Bacchus Wines or through the manual cast of Berserk, which Rose is going to have ample time to put up on any of these casters. It's absolutely great to see. Yeah, see the second big bang, see the black hole. We have Meteos, Rocks phases, only hitting the one edge, as a matter of fact. So this is going to be, even if the rest of them hit, we're going to have a very dead Camlonimus very shortly. And then when that happens, we're going to see, as I say it, shaking GG's to Caront, and we're going to see if we can get him in for an interview as well. And that would be Caront joining us now. Again, GG's, my friend, very well raised. Caront, I believe you are still muted, my friend.
Yeah, it would help if I'd unmute myself, wouldn't it? I had
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry about that. When I came into the general chat to get ready, I came into Gen 1 when there were some folks shooting the salt, so I muted myself, and apologies. But what I had said a second ago to an audience of 1 was I may not have earned a win in this tournament, but it was a fun way to go out, so GG's.
GG's. How would you like? What's your thoughts on on completing your final seed of this league?
Well, I Well, I'm a pretty big competitor, so I'm bummed out that I didn't actually earn a win. But at the same time, considering that I ran my first non-casual seed a week before the tournament, and I finished this one with almost every key item except that silly spoon, and ended up still finishing sub 2, I feel fairly good about how I did today, except just no W. So it was a fun tournament. I really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of interesting watches, and I look forward to learning more about it from people who are way better at this than I am.
Absolutely. We all learn from whether watching our own VODs back or from watching other people. You still did an absolutely fantastic job, especially as we're seeing from the chat from Scholar Kitty. You've done fantastic for someone who just started in. You put up a really good showing. You did a lot of smart checks. So you did things that you may think, oh, well, I might not be that great. You put up a heck of a showing, my friend. So walk us a little bit through the beginning part of the seed. You have Kane, you have Edge. What were your first thoughts right from the get-go?
So, well, one of the things that very much amused me about this seed was, so I get, like you said, you got those guys, and I'm thinking, okay, so, well, Overworld's not going to be too much to deal with. And then I find Second Edge, and ultimately decided that Second Edge was better than Kane with not much equipment at that time. And then the seed said, oh, by the way, here's really good spears, and here's good armor, so haha, you're an idiot. So I was a little miffed on that. But when I got Tella, I immediately started thinking D-Machine, because of course we started out with the Darkness Crystal. So I went around looking to see if I could find all the items that I needed for that, and found life potions easily enough, but I might have missed it, but I never found ethers for sale, or ether ones at least, and that kind of put the kibosh on that, especially once I found sirens. So yeah, but I was pretty satisfied with the characters that were initially available on the overworld. My essentially ideal party was almost immediately filled out.
Yeah, as you said, you found a lot of the items later on. So you have your ideal party, you hit the underground, and you have the entire underground to your oyster. You went and saw those bosses in Famars. You see Valvalis at the Leviathan spot, and you see those the guard fight. What are you thinking when you see those fights right there?
Valvalis, I uttered imprecations and four-letter words that aren't fit for polite company, especially since I'd gotten rid of Kane. And then when I saw the guards, I wasn't sure which guards it was, because one of the many things I need to learn is kind of how to figure that out. But I knew that it was one of them. So I knew that with the hourglasses I'd already picked up that it was doable. So I figured, might as well go ahead and do it and see if I get a key item out of it. And I ended up actually getting a key item out of it. So I felt kind of good about myself after that, although the battle honestly took a little bit longer than I would have liked.
So if you want a little bit of a secret of how to tell which guard is which, you need to be seeing more than one sprite. If only one sprite is on the screen, because of how they filter in, you only know it as one of them. So you got to take the fight to find out, unless you see all four of them at once.
Okay, so there wouldn't have been any way I could have told them.
Face checking is the only way. It's the same thing as with the lunar sprites.
Okay.
So again, so you got that. You get those fights. You then eventually go through Dwarf Castle. You see Hook and Pinktail. You cash those in very quickly, because I believe you also had the Rat Tail at that point.
Yes.
How were you feeling around that time when you found the tails and the way of turning them in at that point?
Well, I mean, obviously that was one of the objectives, so I was glad I had that. But then, of course, it became a question of which of the other objectives were we going to be able to fulfill, because that left Pan or the Legend Sword. And I think, let's see, I think I don't remember if I already had the adamant at that point or if I got it shortly thereafter. But yeah, that was really, once I turned those in and it didn't provide the Pan at that point I knew it was, okay, let's see what key items I have available and let's focus my item checks accordingly, because I knew it was going to end up being, at that point, I think what I had left was Tower and Moon Stuff. So since I ended up getting the tower key before I could duck back down into the underworld or into the moon, then that was obviously 2 checks for basically the price of 1. So I decided that was going to be the best route, at least in terms of efficiency. Then if that didn't pan out, then of course the moon was up for grabs. And well, of course, as it turned out, we got to have ourselves a nice little jaunt through the lunar subterrane.
Speaking of the jaunt to the lunar subterrane, you went top down as well, and you took the look through not only Cave Valley, but you also did the D-Lunars fight. So when you got to that point, what made you take D-Lunars versus Plague Spot appropriately at the beginning?
2 versus 1. That's really, you're talking about the ribbon room, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
D-Lunar Ribbon versus White Spear.
Yeah, it just 2 versus 1. That's really all it amounted to, because it's, I mean, if I take the White Spear fight and it's not the pan, then, I mean, I guess it's kind of 6 half dozen, but just more possibilities is really all it amounted to.
Fantastic. Rumblefish, you got any questions for our man Caront here?
I guess I'm kind of like towards the end there. One thing that was a difference between you and Classy Badger was that you decided to wrap up the seed with Forge the Crystal as opposed to the pan. And I was kind of wondering, and because of that, you were able to get access to the Cocal shop. But what was going through your head? Like, what made you make that decision?
Well, I mean, a couple of things, really. For one, Classy Badger finished right as I was about to turn in the pan, so I'm just like, doggone it. And at that point, I mean, obviously I have nothing to lose, because really then I'm going, okay, so I just turned in the pan, and I got the Legend Sword, which finished out the objective there, or at least the ability to do it. So at that point, it's honestly slightly shorter in terms of travel time to go ahead and forge the adamant, I think. I mean, maybe it's a even split. But then there's also the shop. So I figured I might as well turn it in, get the shop open, see what's there, and then I basically just went on a spending spree with my entire life fortune. And then, since I'd already lost, and I figured, hey, I might as well just see what this seed has to offer all up to the end, I figured I would go ahead and also turn in the pan, forgetting that I actually hadn't done Sheila 1 yet. So I figured might as well go ahead and just do everything. So then I turned in Sheila 1, got the pass, turned in the pan, and went 4 for 4 on the objective. And I mean, at that point, I've lost already. I'm a little miffed that I lost, but I figured I had nothing to lose, and it was maybe a minute or so to go ahead and do both of them, so it didn't really lose me anything in the end, so thought, why not?
I think you really see the difference, though, between the Z fights with both of you. I mean, those crystal rings you got for all of your edges really made you a lot more beefy going against Zeromus. And I think you took a big bang where, well, like all of them took like only a full big bang with 1400 damage, which is really, not a lot.
Yeah, that really surprised me, because because I'm so used to seeing unnerfed big bangs doing somewhere in the neighborhood of 2300 damage, and I was afraid I was going to have to be picking everybody up off the carpet and scrambling, because I don't think I found Bacchus wines either. But with all of that, I figured, hey, I might as well just go ahead and try to keep the edges as berserked as I could and have Rosa just patch them up when necessary. So it made the Z fight a lot more relaxing, I guess.
All right. Well, again, GG's, you did a great showing in this tournament. Even if you didn't pick up a win, you still managed to do great work. You ran these races very well, and I'm excited to see you again when we bring back community races, and as well when we do our next tournament. I'm hoping you'll take everything you learned and run with it from there on.
Well, that's the plan. GG, guys. Thank you, and thank you everybody on the stream team as well, because I do some behind-the-scenes stuff for FFR. So thank you guys for commenting. Thank you, Bahamut and Jofus, I hope I'm saying that semi-right, for doing the tracking and restream. It's obviously a huge effort to put something like this together, and I, for one, very much appreciate all of y'all. So thank you guys, and well, if nothing else. Hopefully, I provided some entertainment for y'all today.
Well, you definitely did a good showing in the seed, so you can be assured of that.
And again, that was Caront, who another one of the guys did a great run for Pride here for the last round of one of the last runs of the hook route here. Again, show them a little bit of love. If you guys liked what you saw, give our runners each a follow as well. We have our guys here, Jofus Manho, Bahamut X, Restream, and Tracking respectively, and my fellow commentator here, Rumblefish82. That is in fact going to do it for us for this afternoon at this race here. However, don't go away. There is currently another FF4 race going on Randomania. It is another one of our lovely hook routes, I believe. Let me just do a quick check. Yeah, this is in fact a hook route between Marty and Vampstar. So we're going to throw you over to them. No spoiling this race as we send you over there.